To start off with, I would want to make sure we don't give the impression that our scientific community and our research institutions are producing faulty data. We maintain a competitive advantage. As a scientist myself, as someone who spent countless hours in the lab as a medical student and has spent time as a faculty member and associate dean at the University of California, Davis, working with our medical students and our resident physicians, we maintain a competitive superiority in our research institutions, and I think Dr. Alberts touched on the importance of the federal investment in our research institutions. We also need to recognize our journals and, particularly our leading peer-reviewed journals. There is a rigorous process, having, again, submitted articles and worked with countless students, that you go through as you're submitting articles. Replicability is an important component, but also putting the information out there so others can look at it and provide feedback is very important. So we want to be conscious of that as well. As we set up our research institutions, we often are doing it in our trials in a very transparent way, funding multi-center trials. When we look at major projects like the Human Genome Project, as we talk about brain mapping, we will set that up in as transparent a way as possible using multiple of our institutions. And it isn't always just about replicability. It is about sharing that data and working together. But at the same time, and my question is this: as we move into this era of wanting to share data, we also have to maintain our competitive advantage. And we do have competitor nations that every day are trying to, get to our data, get to, the research institutions. We talk about cybersecurity on this committee. We need to be very conscious of what we're putting out there as well. So, I'd direct a question to Dr. Alberts. You talked about the importance of research funding as well as the threats to research funding in our academic institutions. Why don't you touch on that, and then if the rest of the panel wants to talk about how we move forward in kind of an open, transparent way, but maintaining our competitive advantage and protecting those discoveries that we're making.
As in my written testimony, I referred to this major project from the National Academy of Sciences when I was president to explain to Congress and to the public how fundamental knowledge produces breakthroughs. The first little pamphlet we produced was on the global positioning system. We started with the fact that physicists invented atomic clocks. They won a Nobel Prize, but everybody thought it was useless because it enabled us to keep time to a billionth of a second, and why should we want to do that? Well, you follow this progression, and I recommend that whole series. It's still up on the web. That, combined with many other findings of knowledge about the world, enabled us to put up these 24 satellites that produce this wonderful device that we all use and the military uses. And we did that over and over. And what's been true in the United States, remarkably, and I don't think people recognize, is we've been a magnet for the most talented people from all around the world coming here. And you just look at Silicon Valley and places like that. So that if we don't keep our leading position as a scientific research place to come to, our universities, then those people won't come here, and they won't subsequently contribute their genius to the American economy and the American strength of our nation. So I'm quite worried right now because many other countries, China for one, they see this very clearly. This is where we have our competitive advantage, and they're trying to gain it. and if we don't pay attention to that, I think we're going to lose this game. We're taking it for granted that all these great people are going to come to this country, but they're not going to do that anymore if we're not the best place to do research.
So I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree with your comments more, and also with Dr. Alberts. The American science is absolutely superb. And as evidence of this, I believe our discussion today actually reflects the high integrity and the honesty of that community in trying to grapple with these problems. This is not, I mean, these, manifestos and so on I put in the testimony here, these are scientists who are concerned about the quality of the science and trying to fix it. This is not anything other than the highest integrity profession. I also wanted to make one quick comment about corollary benefits of open data, going back to your earlier point, which is, you probably gathered by now that I think reproducibility is important, but there are also issues in terms of access to the technology. So if you have the ability, the software tools and the data to replicate those results and those findings, not only can you therefore build on them more easily as well as validating them, but it also opens them to industry and to others who can then capitalize on this or commercialize or whatever they see as appropriate. So it opens all of these avenues towards economic growth that can't be overlooked, that are extremely important. And to your point about, well, what if open data helps our competitors? I think that there's a long history in the U.S. of being able to capitalize on this and move ahead, and I don't think that maintaining a closure around our scientific enterprise does anything but restrict American enterprise and competitiveness internationally and also threaten the integrity of our results. I mean, science moves forward, as Dr. Alberts mentioned, through skepticism and through questioning and through transparency and openness, and being able to share those methods and giving others the tools to replicate and also build on, commercialize, capitalize on all of this, I think is an avenue towards economic growth and an avenue towards STEM understanding, too. When it's open, you can imagine smart high school kids getting their hands on this stuff and figuring things out and playing with it, and that's very real.